Have you ever done something so humiliating that you cannot look at a person in the eye anymore? It was an 8-hour flight. I had a window seat and needed to go to the restroom. The man next to me did not want to leave his seat and insisted that I step over him. This caused a dilemma. Do I step over him with my crotch in his face? Or do I step over him with my butt in his face? I decided that the latter was less offensive. So I was awkwardly stepping over him, one leg already over, legs apart, and I could not clench any longer. Yes, folks, I farted in his face. When I returned from the restroom, he was very quick to get out of his seat so that I could get into mine. We spent the rest of the 8-hour flight in utter silence and no eye contact. Serves the lazy bastard right. It's common courtesy to make way for people trying to pass you. There I was, extreme pooping in company toilet. It was so intense that I clogged the toilet. I had no idea what to do and decided to leave the toilet. On my way out, there's this my superior come into the toilet. It has only one stall, so yeah, he went into it. As I walked down the pathway into the office space, I heard what the frick coming from the toilet. Long story short, when I have meeting with him, I cannot look straight into his face because he looked straight into my poop. Hey, it's not the company's problem, it was your poop day. A few years ago I was at the movie theater and the theater was packed, so I was sitting right next to someone I did not know. We both had sodas and I reached for the wrong cup and took a huge drink. I quickly realized it was not mine and put it back. I could feel the other person staring at me like I was some freaking nut job. I just had to sit there for the rest of the movie pretending like nothing happened. Yeah, it was weird. Why didn't you just say you thought it was your drink to avoid awkwardness? Once had a dream where I fricked the girl down the hall in my dorm. Got blackout drunk one night and told a huge group of people. She was one of the people in the room. Had a hard time looking at her after that. I had a guy on ecstasy tell me he thinks about me when he masturbates. He then suddenly sobered up and said, "I really regret telling you that." The look on his face told me he wasn't lying. For my cousin's 7th birthday party, he invited all his friends and family over to his house. There was a big party with all the normal birthday stuff, which included a huge cake. We had just sung happy birthday to him, and my aunt had given a slice of cake to all the kids. Before he began to eat his piece, I told him that the cake smelled kinda funny. He brought his face closer to the cake to smell it, and I pushed him face first into the cake. It was something my dad taught me, and I thought it would be hilarious. He did not. He spent the next hour in his room crying. It's been 13 years and I still feel horrible about it, and we can't sit next to each other if we're eating. So when I was in 8th grade I went to a private school, and Latin was mandatory. Everyone had to start Latin in 8th grade. It was terrible. Anyway, there was this one new female young teacher who couldn't control her class. One day her class started chanting Latin is a dead language. Apparently she broke down and started crying as she ran out of the room. So I didn't know that she had had this breakdown, and I was sitting outside of the Latin classrooms one day waiting for my class with another teacher, and the teacher was walking by. A friend sitting next to me prodded me to shout out Latin is a dead language, and she stopped, whirled around and stared me down before tears welled up in her eyes and she sprinted off down the hall. I had to have 3 meetings with a school counselor about it and apologized to the entire Latin staff. I went to that school through 12th grade and passed her often in the hallways. Needless to say I always stared at my feet when she passed. But Latin is a dead language. Was drunk and had sex with a guy I knew from high school. It was rough, wild sex. I took it a little too far and ripped a mole off his back with my fingernails. We woke up hours after sex. His bed and his back were completely soaked in blood. His ripped off mole was stuck to my thigh. Awesome. If that thing doesn't grow back, you should send him an invoice. I tried to kick a small rock, slipped on ice and fell on my butt in the most cartoonish looking way in front of 3 girls from my English class, my best friend and my English teacher. The worst part was that my English teacher, who almost never even smiles, could not contain his laughter. Just recently I was at a band competition and did the same thing, only in front of my whole section. Accidentally showed a coworker my Amazon homepage. wife and I's anniversary was around the corner and we wanted to buy a few sex toys to celebrate. I forgot that Amazon would show your recently viewed items in history. Anyway, I went to show someone something I found on Amazon cheaper than what they were going to buy it for. I'm not actually sure if he actually saw it. He acted like he didn't at least. GGG pretending he didn't see your anal blast of 3.0 inches. I woke up one morning after a night of drinking. I remembered that I had tried to dance and immediately went into oh crap mode. I am not a good dancer and it takes a great deal of alcohol for me to try. One of my friends then shows me the video. I was, awkwardly, terribly, trying to dance with a girl I was in the same work-related training program with. It was more like dance chasing as she actively tried to get away from my drunk self. I can't even tell you what happened in the whole of the video because I cannot bear to watch it. I apologized the next time I saw her and then I didn't speak to her for another month. The training program ended 2 months after that, and I was thankful that we went to different continents after that. This guy I knew in college had a bad habit of just showing up places and not taking the cues that people didn't want him there. Well, one afternoon he showed up to my house, right as my roommates and I were about to go try a new Chinese place that had just opened up. I knew that if this kid knew what we were doing he would just invite himself along. So I, being the butthole that I am, texted one of my roommates saying don't tell John about Main Moon or we will never get rid of him. Guess who I absent-mindedly sent the text to by mistake. Saw him look at the message. He made no signal to the rest of the group and just made an excuse to leave. I need another drink. Poor John. Okay, so back in 6th grade there was this guy I liked and I was super obvious about it. So one day, some other guy decided to pull a prank on me and told me the guy I liked was gonna ask me out. I was, of course, very pleased and walked into class all confident. I walked up to him and was like, so, we going out now or what? He did not like me. Not one bit. I had to run away to the bathroom. On the bright side, you basically asked out a guy in the most bad butt way possible. I once puked into a girl's vagina. Not proud of that. I was 16 and went to a party with some friends. Drank probably around 8 ounces of whiskey and half a Four Loko. For those of you who don't know, a Four Loko is an extremely strong alcoholic energy drink. They are now illegal where I live. I meet this girl and start drunkenly flirting with her. We start making out and it's great. Then she stands up, takes me by the hand and leads me into a dark bedroom. The room starts to spin a bit, but I'm not going to let that get in the way. So I pull down her pants and remove her underwear. Then there is the biggest bush I've ever seen. I thought about not doing it but decided I've gone too far. So I go down on her. The smell is horrendous. The taste is worse. I start gagging but I'm in too deep. The next thing I knew I was projectile vomiting into her vagina. She starts screaming. Everyone at the party rushes into the room. Someone turns on the light and she was covered in my vomit. She starts crying. My butthole friends are dying laughing. The host is cursing up a storm. Then I realize the room I was in. A bunch of stuffed animals. Little Mermaid sheets on the bed. A TV that looked like a polar bear. Turns out I was in the host's 6-year-old sister's room. TLDR, I threw up in a girl's vagina and ruined a party. I was never invited back. Until the projectile vomit. I thought this was going to be Jolly Rancher. No. 2. I was at an engagement party and they had disposable cameras so everyone could take photos. After a couple beers I was in the bathroom and one thing led to another and my mates and I ended up taking photos with our willies tucked between our legs pretending to be girls. That soon led to photos of our ball sacks and as a mate was taking a pic of my balls another guy I kinda knew licked my sack. It was pretty weird and escalated it to another level. We were all pretty drunk and it was only afterwards I thought it was weird, but I think it's freaking funny still. In HS, the last day of class, the professor was giving us the final grades. We were leaning on her desk. I was so eager to know it that I didn't realize I was drooling and it all fell on this girl's hair. That was pretty embarrassing. For me, I find the moments when I see someone from high school or university who I recognize, but isn't really my friend, walking towards me from about 50 yards away, incredibly humiliating and uncomfortable. The whole agonizing time you have to look away or down at the floor and pretend you didn't just make eye contact until you're about 5 yards away. Then awkwardly look up and say hello and hope to God they don't stop and try to engage you in small talk. Try working and having them be your customer. They look at you strangely as though you're suddenly beneath them. Blind drunk and asleep on a friend's lounge. Sprayed vomit all over the carpet in front of the lounge. Instead of trying to clean it up, my drunken brain considered it best to drag the lounge forward and cover it up. I just went back to sleep as if nothing had happened. For some reason, which I still don't know why, I just got up and left. It was through a mutual friend 2 months later that I had found out what my drunken alter ego had done, and it finally occurred to me why he stopped responding to my messages. I couldn't even talk to that group of friends. I was so humiliated. Everyone knew what was up in that 2 months but said nothing. That was almost 10 years ago to the day. I still have not talked to anyone from that group since. TLDR, covered vomit with a lounge. This thread makes me want to stop drinking alcohol. We were sneak drinking at a friend's house in high school. I knew absolutely nothing about toilets then, so when I went to use it I started a chain reaction of madness. The toilet clogged, I was drunk, and decided the proper way to fix it was to remove the tank lid. It was 3 AM and chose this moment to drop the lid and make the loudest glass shatter ever. I was drunk and laughing when my friend was beating on the door. Upon stumbling to open the door, I fell into the wall and knocked ceramic Jesus down, shattering him. Passed out under our homemade Pyongyang table. His parents are super nice and cool and still talk about that night. -1 for jungler legs. Homemade Pyongyang table. Hail the great table leader. One day at school during lunch, my buddy dared me to take a crap on the concrete in this semi-secluded area between 2 buildings. Then he double dared me, so I had no choice. So I go and get some toilet paper, get into the corner, drop my pants, squat down, and squeeze. Then just as I hear the first slap of turd on pavement, my crush walks past and sees what I'm doing. She gives me the weirdest look and walks off. I couldn't look or talk to her for quite a while after that. I swear I saw this story before. I was at a house party at my cousin's. It was a little rowdy and everyone got pretty fricked up. Well, one thing led to another and I ended up banging her roommate, let's call her C. After the deed we pass out. Next morning I wake up alone in her bed and get up, go to the living room to play some GTA V. My cousin's boyfriend walks into the living room and asks if I remember what happened last night. I am like, yeah dude, I banged C. He's like, yeah, what about afterwards? I must have looked pretty confused, because he can't keep a straight face. He then informs me that at some point I got up, walked to the corner of her room and started to take the longest pee ever. In the process I soaked her poor cat, ruined like $400 in designer makeup, stained the carpet and sprayed her in the face. I felt horrible. I bought her flowers and cleaned the room the best I could. But the best part is, that was my first time. They say you never forget your first. At high school one day, when a friend of mine gets out of art class and I'm on my way to math, in art, they were making helmets out of buckets and other various materials, and he shows me his. Hey, do you mind if I wear this for a minute? Sure, but there aren't any eye holes. So, I put it on and I start walking down the hall grabbing the wall so I don't crash into something. When I come to an open door, leading to the rest of the hallway, I hear a different friend's voice. So I begin to violently grope his chest and stomach. Only, it feels wrong. Whereas he has a flat, sinewy stomach, and his ribs distend a little enough to feel, from his chest, I feel something very soft and pillowy at the chest and a much rounder, harder stomach than I'm used to. I take off the helmet and witness my 8-month pregnant math teacher staring at me with horrified eyes, and small tears beginning to well in her eyes before she looks to the ground and briskly walks off as I stand there dumbstruck, with my friend staring in awe at what just occurred. This was the first week, and I had half of my school day with this teacher for the rest of the year. She never looked me in the eye or spoke directly to me ever again. Her husband, however, really likes me and visibly beams when I enter the room. I don't think he knows. Plot twist. He knows, and they both exploited the way the situation made her feel by role-playing the scenario out nightly, after which they have the most mind-blowing sex ever. Your gropes saved their marriage. Which is why he loves you. She still ignored you because it helped her orgasm later to stay in character about it all day. When I was in college I hooked up with a girl after a small get together. At a certain point she starts giving me a BJ, and I farted. It was the most heinous thing ever, and I had to check the sheets under my butt to make sure I didn't crap myself. We both ran out of the room to escape the horrible smell that had us both gagging. So there we are in the hallway, only wearing the clothes we grabbed during our run from the bed to the door. There was nothing I could say in that situation that would make it any better. After a long awkward moment of silence I started laughing. And I couldn't stop laughing. To the point where I was literally laying on the floor laughing, tears coming down my face. When I finally regained my composure she was gone. This girl was in my major and we shared 2-3 classes a semester the next 3 years. During which we never made eye contact much less talked. TL. Dr. Terrible. Crap and rotten eggs and bad fish and moldy cheese and spoiled milk and vomit and burnt hair smelling fart. I guess you've got a heinous anus. In high school I thought it would be a good idea to de-pants a girl while we were on a band bowling trip. As soon as I did it, I know I had made the wrong choice. She started crying and freaking out. I felt so bad and apologized, but we could never look each other in the eye for the rest of high school. Sorry Robin. There's a time and a place to pull down a woman's pants. Don't really remember saying this, but apparently at a college party a few years back I said this really cute girl gave me a chub. Fast forward to this year and the host of said party is getting married and she is a bridesmaid. She says, "Oh, I remember you. I've been calling you chubs forever." I had no recollection of it happening, but another buddy Vince asked her about it and told me that happened. Yesterday actually, my younger stepbrother is like 16. Had a car, but no license yet. My car was in the shop, so I borrowed his. Small book. I'm used to driving much bigger cars. Ended up losing control on an icy road and spinning his car sideways into a tree. I was dizzy. My neck and left arm felt funny, but I got out to flag for help. He isn't angry, but I don't think I have ever felt so sorry in my life. The car's total colon. Well, I guess now it makes sense why your car was in the shop. I was shaking my dong in the urinal to get rid of the urine, and a drop of pee landed on my lip and I freak out and turn around screaming with my dong still out, and people just looked and laughed. At my brother's 7th birthday party, I was drinking a Capri Sun, being the only 9-year-old BC family, and I randomly had the urge to do a spit take on someone. Specifically, my brother's BFF at the time. Little me gave into the urge. The shock on his face made me full of instant regret. I got sent out of the party room by my dad, and my embarrassment made me not want to go back inside. 8 years later and I still can't look at him without remembering. Someone help me on what a spit take is. This isn't me personally, but my little brother, Christmas morning 1999 or so, sleeps over his girlfriend's house. He was 17 and she was 16. Dad is a detective for our local police department. Mom is a stay-at-home type, well-to-do folks. They have the family all sitting around doing the gift exchange. A small poodle puppy is one of the gifts. Yeah, a puppy for the girl, everyone thinks. After about a half hour of letting the puppy run around while the gifts are being opened, the little guy runs down the hall without anyone following him. It runs into the bedroom and finds in the garbage a used condom from the teenage daughter and my brother from the previous night. They snuck a little naughty time under the parent's nose, I guess. He comes happily running down the hall was a mess. Def was no mistaking what he got into. Disgusting. Then the poor mother had to wash the dog while giving the daughter the 3rd degree. That is the most humiliating thing I can remember hearing. Suru glad it wasn't me. You use way too many ellipses. A period once in a while is helpful. I confessed attraction to my friend. He let me down gently, but now I just feel awkward around him. I lost the feelings, just the thought that he might think things are weird makes me act weird in a self-fulfilling prophecy kind of way. I did the same thing when we started messing around drunk one night, except I started crying like a complete dumbass. 10-year friendship down the drain in one night. Still haven't forgiven myself. You're not alone, friend. Thankfully I'm still with this girl and hope to keep her around as long as I can. Early in our relationship, my soul was bartending at the hotel she works at and wanted to get me drunk. I have a 2 beer limit on myself for a novel worth of reasons, including past addiction problems I keep in check. She starts to feed me shots at a pretty steady pace. I go with it, thinking I can keep my head. I do for a while, but it eventually catches up with me. I end up projectile vomiting all over an employee bathroom, sobbing and retching in a hotel bathtub. All the while she's feeding me crackers and water, cleaning said bathroom, and washing my clothes that I had drenched in the most foul smell I'd ever encountered. She also hauled me up a set of stairs to get to said hotel room. She's just over 5 foot tall and dozens of pounds lighter than me. I apparently also said some pretty ill-advised and stupid crap about another girl at the bar. She didn't let me live it down for a while, but that was an early sign I needed to keep this one around. She dealt with me at my most miserable and insufferable, and just used it for loving troll fodder later. Freaking keep her. When I was 8 or so, my aunt took me and my cousin to our karate lesson, where I had to change in the bathroom before class. Once changed into my butt-kicking uniform, I had to give my aunt my non-butt-kicking clothes so they wouldn't get my cousin's blood on them. Unfortunately my aunt has a twin or something who I accidentally handed them to, saying, "I'm just gonna toss these on you for now." Upon realizing my mistake I ran over, grabbed my clothes, apologized, and ran to my aunt, who laughed her butt off. I couldn't make eye contact the entire time without feeling the shame of my ancestors frowning upon me. Semi-relevant. I almost didn't end up with my husband because I totally humiliated myself on one of our first dates. We had gone out and had a good time one night, and at the end of the night we were fooling around in his car. It got kinda heavy and I thought I was rubbing his boner through his jeans. I decided to try out some sexy talk, which I hadn't really done before, and said things like, "You like that, yeah, you love when I stroke your big dong, etc." I think he was going to just leave it alone, but after a while he must have felt bad for me because he gently informed me that he had been working on his car in the dark earlier and still had a flashlight in his pocket, which is what I was rubbing and trying to talk dirty about. I laughed it off and then feigned some sort of sudden illness to go home and then ignored his calls and texts for a few days. I think I was just really embarrassed and I thought I would seem cool again if I ignored him and tried to seem very uninterested in the whole relationship. He pretty much knew what I was doing, so he kept bugging me until we started hanging out again. That was roughly 8 years ago and now we're married, so I guess it worked out. Note to self, when you embarrass a girl, pester her persistently. She might turn out to be your future wife. Great story though. So I once opened a new tab while with a tutor and, as I had forgotten to delete my history, some sites showed up. Extremely awkward, of course. She clearly saw and I knew she did. Anyway, fast forward a week ahead and she gets out her computer, opens a new tab, and lo and behold there's Pornhub on the history. She tries to hide it quickly but I see it, and she knows I saw it. We both experienced exactly the same awful embarrassment. Incognito. I was having a FB conversation with my cousin friend and a girl I really frickin' liked her. Like, creepy levels. Invited another dude into the convo. The first two went AFK for a while. Talking to the third dude, I mention how people think that I'd like some other girl, who isn't too relevant. He asks who I do like. If you guess it's the girl in the chat, you're right. Cue me freaking the frick out over FB chat, with lots of laughing and crap coming from both me and the other guy. This wouldn't be a problem if it wasn't for the aftermath. Turns out she didn't like me. Not surprising. I end up becoming really awkward and creepy around her. End up making jokes about it myself, which wouldn't be a problem if I made it clear it was a joke. Here's the most cringiest example. I made a joke about it to my teacher, asking as a joke if she wanted to see the chat logs. Didn't let on though, so it became really awkward again. At the end of the school holidays, realized exactly what I was doing and cleaned up my act. Stopped being creepy, let on when I was joking more, lost weight. I was a freaking bull then. I'm still a fat frick now, but not as much. Stopped listening to a total of 3 artists. Totally unrelated, but whatevs. Still awkward around her now, but we can at least talk a bit. This was near the end of 2013. I don't know how to feel about myself anymore. I grew up in a polygamous family. Everyone in my middle school knew we were from a polygamous background, but I had many cousins in the same grade and a lot of people assumed they were my siblings. I got a lot of crap from teachers who were straight up cruel to me for my parents' choice in beliefs. Pretty freaked up, actually. It's the end of the school year and I'm in 9th grade. My teacher tells everyone to write him an anonymous note about their honest feelings of the class and his teaching methods and to drop it in a box so he can read them. This was an actual assignment. Of course, being frequently humiliated by this teacher, I thought he was a real frick and nicely said so in my anonymous note. The subject matter was of course easily traced back to me. No other kid would write about polygamy. From then on, he criticized all my schoolwork harshly and wouldn't talk to me in class. It was awkward as heck, but thank God there was only a couple weeks left. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.